Welcome Trinidad and Tobago to our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barreto. Let's take a look at the headlines. The Prime Minister addresses world leaders at the 68th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Government pledges support to the Electrical Inspectorate Division. And Ministry of Tobago Development to implement a marine monitoring system to aid Tobago's fishermen. To our top story, world leaders at the 68th session of the United Nations General Assembly have agreed to scale up action against extreme poverty, hunger and disease. As such, they have called for a 2015 summit to adopt the next set of goals to focus continued efforts after the target date for the Millennium Development Goals.
Prime Minister, the Honourable Kamla Bissessar, has welcomed the decision by President of the 68th session of the United Nations General Assembly, John W. Ashe, to launch the intergovernmental process toward the agreement of the post-2015 development agenda. The Honourable Prime Minister was speaking at the General Assembly in New York on Wednesday. She explained that the post-2015 development agenda should provide a new and more inclusive architecture to assist the UN member states in achieving global sustainable development objectives.
We applaud you for focusing on these efforts. We agree with you that it is an opportune moment to begin the discourse on setting the stage for the post-2015 development agenda. Some prep work has already been done. At the Rio +20 conference, world leaders pledge action on sustainable development. We recognize the shortcomings of the MDG process and the need to embrace a new partnership involving governments, the private sector, civil society, and multilateral banks, amongst others, to advance action on sustainable development. As leaders, we agree to an outcome document to chart, quote, the future we want. That is, a more sustainable future for the benefit of present and future generations. The future we want addresses many facets of what is required to stimulate sustainable development for all countries. Trinidad and Tobago was a very active partner at that conference, and so today we say we will continue to support emphasis placed on poverty eradication as the greatest global challenge facing the world today.
At the Rio +20 conference in 2012, Brazil's President, Her Excellency Dilma Rousseff, said she was convinced that the conference would have the effect of bringing about sweeping change. On Wednesday, Prime Minister Persad Bissessar stated that Trinidad and Tobago and many developing countries also shared the sentiments of Brazil's president.
As we begin to set the stage for the post-2015 development agenda, Trinidad and Tobago respectfully submits that the General Assembly must provide a platform to achieve this sweeping change, so as to ensure that we realize the objective of integrating sustainable development at all levels for a better world for all humanity. In keeping with this renewed commitment, we applaud the launch of the high-level political forum on sustainable development to provide an appropriate level of involvement and high-level political oversight for the implementation of our collective sustainable development aspirations. Trinidad and Tobago, therefore, also supports your announcement, Mr. President, to commence in a robust manner during the current session of this Assembly deliberations aimed at arriving at a development agenda for the post-2015 period. We support your plans to convene high-level events aimed at addressing women, the young and civil society, human rights and the rule of law, and South cooperation and ICT development. In our respectful view, the topics you have selected to guide the 3 thematic debates scheduled for this session of the Assembly are well chosen, namely the role of partnerships, how stable and peaceful societies can contribute to development, and the way water, sanitation, and sustainable energy can contribute to the post-2015 development agenda.
The Honourable Prime Minister believes the areas to be tackled at these events demonstrate the President's vision of the elements that are needed to give effect to the outcome of the Rio +20 conference, which embodies the hopes and dreams of the most vulnerable members of the international community. She says there must be a coordinated effort to use these events to formulate a development agenda which builds on and further accelerates the reduction of poverty levels, which has already witnessed the fastest reduction in history since the launch of the Millennium Development Goals. The Honourable Prime Minister also called for the discourse to be people-centred, or as some commentators have postulated, it must be based on our common humanity. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister stressed the importance and relevance of the Arms Trade Treaty and believes the implementation of such a treaty can prevent the further loss of lives.
Prime Minister, the Honourable Kamla Bissessar, believes the implementation of the Arms Trade Treaty would significantly enhance national efforts aimed at providing a safe and secure environment for citizens, which is a contributory factor to development. The Honourable Prime Minister was speaking at the 68th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York on Wednesday. Her comments came after she deposited the instrument of ratification of Trinidad and Tobago to the Arms Trade Treaty.
We recognize that peace, security, and stability provide an enabling environment for sustainable development. Indeed, national and personal security is one of the 7 pillars of our own national sustainable development strategy. At the international level, we are stalwart supporters of the Arms Trade Treaty agreed to in March of this year, and which we have already signed and today deposited our instrument of ratification. In the light of our experiences and challenges with the impact of crime, violence, and the illicit trade in small arms and light weapons on our own development efforts, we would encourage all states who have not as yet done so to sign and ratify the Arms Trade Treaty so that it may come into force at the earliest opportunity.
The Honourable Prime Minister made mention of the way in which President's gold medalist Ravindra Ramanathan lost his life on Saturday during a terrorist attack on Westgate Mall in Nairobi.
He no doubt fell victim to illegal guns and other weapons in the hands of murderous terrorists. His death is merely one more example of the consequences of the illicit cross-border flows.
In the same breath, the Prime Minister expressed concern with the escalating humanitarian crisis in Syria and reiterated this country's call for the situation to be resolved through dialogue and not through the use of any measures which would violate international law. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
When we come back, government pledges support to the Electrical Inspectorate Division. Stay with us. Welcome back. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is pledging its support to the Electrical Inspectorate Division in the work it does to ensure that it meets the needs of citizens throughout the country. The announcement was made by Minister of Public Utilities, the Honourable Nizam Bash, who was delivering the feature address at a stakeholder meeting on rollout empowerment of industrial electrical cables.
The government of Trinidad and Tobago understands the necessity of building partnerships both with the public and private sector as they pursue a clear path to national development. This stakeholder event marks government's commitment to that sort of collaboration, since it is a direct result of the partnership between the Electrical Inspectorate and the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards.
Following the discussions between the two parties, the standard TTS BS 5467 of 2012 was declared by the Bureau in an attempt to address various challenges faced by the EID in carrying out of its duties. In other words, this revised standard is a solution, one that positively impacts not just the EID, but also the persons who own and use the buildings in which these cables will be installed.
The minister commended both parties for their continued commitment to the development of Trinidad and Tobago through the adoption and enforcement of standards that not only support commercial and industrial growth, but one that also keep the people safe.
Over the years, that partnership has given birth to the revision of a number of electrical codes. This work has strengthened the EID in its duty to provide proper electrical inspections. And the two organizations are currently working on several other projects, including the National Electrical Codes and the standards for electrical products like the air conditioning units.
As line minister for the Electrical Inspectorate Division, Minister Baksh says he is voicing his support for this continued collaboration and expressed the hope that it will grow and thrive as the electrical industry continues to evolve to meet the needs of Trinidad and Tobago.
The EID is currently involved in a number of projects that will position it to better meet those aforementioned needs. These include the restructuring of the inspectorate, the appointment of additional electrical inspectors, the establishment of a fourth EID office in Chaguanas to serve the central region, and the computerization of the EID's entire operation. These projects vary in their scope of impact and their timelines, but they are all geared towards enabling the EID to serve you, the general public, in a more efficient and effective manner.
Minister of Public Utilities, the Honorable Nizam Baksh, says officials of both the Bureau and the Electrical Inspectorate Division, EID, will be explaining how stakeholders will be affected by the enforcement of the new standard.
This meeting is to discuss the revised requirements for electrical cables and, of course, the way in which our two organizations, the TTBS and the EID, will perform the monitoring of this product at ports of entry, in the marketplace, and in electrical installations. And I dare say this combination of activities is much more than the individual parts. Together, they represent a very complete observation of the nature of the application of these cables.
Joseph Lopez, News 4.
It is said time and time again that the fishing industry in Tobago plays a crucial role in employing a number of Tobagonians. It was Minister of Tobago Development, Dr. the Honorable Delmon Baker, who outlined that there are approximately 1,000 persons in Tobago directly involved in the trade, while another 3,000 are indirectly employed within the fishing industry, which accounts for 23% of the island's GDP. However, these same fishermen are challenged daily when out at sea and even when their boats are left at sea.
Fishermen in Tobago experience a variety of difficulties when engaging in their day-to-day activities, which include the open sea. Their livelihoods are seriously threatened by the theft of fishing boats and equipment, the occasional straying into the exclusive economic zones belonging to other Caribbean islands and its associated risk of being arrested, and further technical difficulties with their fishing boats and engines. It is for these reasons that the Ministry of Tobago Development is about to implement a marine monitoring system which will assist in eliminating the challenges they face, an initiative that was praised by President of the All Tobago Fisherfolk, Junior Kwashi. Mr. Kwashi highlighted the fact that this system would bring some relief to Tobago fishermen knowing that their boats are secured. If implemented, the marine monitoring system will address the concerns through the use of three main modules: weather, communication, and safety. Weather. Communication of data between the Meteorological Office and the target population will be executed through the use of text messages, websites, smart device applications, and the general media. Communication. Fishermen will be able to sign up for and utilize a closed group service facilitated by the Ministry of Tobago Development, which will enable fishermen to communicate between themselves and the Meteorological Office for updates using their specialized satellite devices. Safety and security at sea will be addressed through the installation of a satellite-based global positioning system. The global positioning system component of the small watercraft system would be made available to the local fishermen to ensure that their boats do not stray out of Trinidad and Tobago's maritime boundaries. The minister will soon be seeking Cabinet's approval for his ministry to implement this system, but for now it is in the technical review stage where the exact specifications for the system are being drafted and will be circulated for comments among relevant parties and will become available in the shortest possible time, according to the Ministry of Tobago Development via a news release. Reporting from Tobago, Patricia Nicholson, News 4.
When we come back, our sport report. Stay with us. Welcome back. National footballer Keely Adams has suffered a heart attack. The 22-year-old defender, who has been capped 9 times, currently plays for Hungarian team Ferencvárosi. His team, in a release, says Adams is in intensive care and his condition remains serious, although the additional risk of myocardial infarction was resolved. Adams has started all 6 games for the team in the new season following his August transfer to the Hungarian club. The defender had reportedly told club officials he wasn't feeling well and was discovered at his home by his teammates, who rushed him to the hospital. Ferencvárosi says more tests will be conducted on Adams while he is kept in intensive care and will continue to update the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association on his status. The Honourable Anil Roberts, Minister of Sport, as well as us here at GSL News 4, we wish Hakeem Adams a speedy recovery and hope to see him back on the football field soon. On to other news. 2 teams representing Trinidad and Tobago at the 2013 CONCACAF Champions League were both defeated yesterday to leave them both winless in this year's competition. W Connection and Caledonia AIA took to the pitch last evening for their final group games.
Connection and Caledonia, both bottom of their groups, faced off against their opponents on foreign soil last evening. The game was a matter of pride for both Trini teams, but there was no pride to be had by either. In Caledonia's game, 2 first-half goals by Jairo Areola and Joel Francisco Benitez were enough to give Guatemalan league table toppers Comunicaciones the victory needed to keep its hope of a berth in the quarterfinals alive. Comunicaciones went ahead in the 29th minute, Carlos Figueroa delivering this perfect cross from the right for Areola to head home from 6 yards past goalkeeper Chamel Louison. Jean Marquez then slid a free kick to Figueroa, who worked his magic on the flank again to deliver another assist, this time to Benitez, who headed in from point-blank range. The Guatemalan champions now sit on 6 points, 3 points behind group leaders Toluca, with both still set to face each other, while Caledonia remain bottom of Group 6 with no points from their 4 games. Meanwhile, the Houston Dynamo also put 2 past DirecTV W Connection without response in their matchup at the BBVA Compass Stadium in Houston. The first goal came in the 39th as Jamaican Jason Johnson pushed the ball past W Connection defender João Jordão and smashed his shot into the goal from 16 yards out. Jordão was the culprit again as Houston's Bobby Boswell put this header between the posts in the 51st with a little help from Jordão, the ball coming off the defender at the near post. The victory lifted Houston to the top of Group 1 with 7 points. Panamanian club Arabe Unido sits second on 6, while Connection is bottom of the group after picking up just 1 point from their 4 games. Gregory McBurney, News 4 Sports.
News 4 continues after the break. Stay with us. Member of Parliament for Arima and Minister of National Diversity and Social Integration, the Honourable Roger Samuel, has once again hosted a successful marathon in his constituency, or that should be constituency, seeking to bring positive attention to the borough.
Alongside Republic Day celebrations held throughout the country, residents of Arima enjoyed a day filled with activities which even attracted Acting Prime Minister and Minister of Legal Affairs, the Honourable Prakash Ramadal. The National Quarries Arima Green Mountain Marathon was hosted on Tuesday by Member of Parliament for Arima and Minister of National Diversity and Social Integration, the Honourable Roger Samuel. The third annual marathon encompassed 2 running events, a full 26.2-mile marathon from Blanchisseuse to Arima, which started at 6 a.m., and a 5-kilometer road race from Lalaha to Arima, which began at 6:30 a.m.
The genesis behind the marathon was first and foremost to highlight the beauty of Arima, the beauty of the Blanchisseuse Road, the aspect of Arima that has a lot of Trinidadians and Tobagonians really don't know anything about. But not only that, to challenge athletes. All of the marathons in Trinidad and Tobago are run on the flat. And this Arima Green Mountain Marathon is the most challenging marathon there is in this part of the world. As a matter of fact, so many athletes that would have conquered a lot of the marathons that are on the flat and the half marathons will dare to compete in this marathon because it will take every ounce of energy out of them. But at the end of the day, it is conquering it that is important.
The Honourable Member of Parliament stated that the very